Star Trek is at an interesting crossroads in the franchise. Is it dead in the water, or is it at the strongest it's ever been? Welcome to Sidetrack, your sci-fi TV, the movie channel. So I get comments all the time on the channel about how Star Trek is dead, that Kurtzman has destroyed it. I actually get dragged into this occasionally, and some people think that I also hate Alex Kurtzman, and I don't. I share what I'm told by people that I know that work in and around Paramount. Some parts of the Paramount executive aren't massively confident about what's going on with Star Trek, and to be honest, that makes sense because as fans, we're quite divided. But is Star Trek at the moment dead in the water, or is it actually the strongest it's ever been? Well, following Strange New Worlds Season 1 and now Picard Season 3, which have both been pretty popular. Lower Decks continues to grow in popularity, and actually Star Trek Prodigy, even though it was a kids show, was again pretty well respected. You could argue that Star Trek is doing very nicely, thank you very much. Now, a lot of people want Picard to have been a failure. A lot of people want New Trek just to die. They hate it. They shout woke at it a lot. And they're not always wrong. So where do we really stand with Star Trek today? Well, I would say that its popularity is reasonable. It's not as good and it's not as watched as it was back in the day when it was a prime time sci-fi show on a network. But to be honest, its numbers compared to other shows, generally speaking, aren't bad. Now, for Paramount, it's the jewel in the crown. And for Paramount Plus, it is insanely important that Strange New Worlds Season 2 does well. Picard Season 3 did do well. It actually appeared on the top 10 lists for all streaming platforms when it was airing, about episode 6 or 7. Now, Star Trek has never appeared on that list before. It always gets pretty high up on Paramount's and even on Prime's top 10 list, but it hasn't actually got the overall list before. So you could argue from that straight away that Picard Season 3 was a jump forwards. More people watched it. It's still true that all of the Star Trek on Paramount does get good rewatches. Star Trek does still do well for that. Even shows like Discovery, real Trekkies will watch it again and again and again. But there is a problem. Paramount is financially kind of screwed, and they really desperately need Paramount Plus to succeed. The problem is, it isn't. It isn't getting great numbers. It's by far the smallest of the big boys when it comes to the streaming service. And I would actually argue it desperately needs to merge with another provider. I would say go merge with Netflix. So there are financial reasons why Star Trek must succeed. And I would actually argue that Star Trek has come a long way during this period of New Trek. Picard Season 3 was an improvement on the first two seasons. And in general, the tone and the style of the show has improved vastly from the first two seasons of Discovery that were influenced by the J.J. Abrams Star Trek way too much. We'll just put it that way. It was dark, it was weird, and the Klingons just creeped me out. And it just generally wasn't well written. So it's improving, but it's still not good enough. For me, it's not as good as the original Trek. It's not as good as Star Trek The Next Generation, Voyager, or even Deep Space Nine. And that's what these shows should be compared to. They shouldn't be compared to sci-fi that's on our screens today. They should be compared to proper Star Trek. If they don't add up, then we shouldn't be celebrating them. So Star Trek right now is really at a crossroads. It's improved. It's got better. Picard Season 3 actually broke through that barrier and people actually watched it. People got interested and excited about Star Trek again. So Strange New Worlds is vitally important. It must succeed. But will it? Well, I have some concerns. For one, I actually really love Strange New Worlds, but I didn't like the last couple of episodes. They should never have brought Kirk back. It was a massive mistake. I don't know why they did it. To be honest, as well, I think they really shot themselves in the foot too early. Bringing Kirk in is something you do around season 3 or 4 when maybe the interest is waning a little bit. You don't do it towards the end of the first season. You let the characters that you've got bed in. If you then need to pull out the big guns like Kirk later, that's when you do it. But they also made another mistake. They badly cast him. The guy that they got playing, I couldn't even bother to Google his name because I don't like him. Apparently, he was in like Vampire Diaries or something. He was a bit of a heartthrob. Don't care. He just isn't Kirk. He's just not very good. He looks like he's got a bad back or something as well. He holds himself weird, but it's just not right. And to be honest, the way he played the character was just not right. And apparently, I'm not the only person that thought it. Now, Kirk is going to be in season 2 a bit more. So immediately we have a risk. The last 2 episodes of the first season were the weakest of the season. So how is that going to translate into season 2? We've also got a little bit of an issue with the Lower Decks Strange New Worlds crossover. It's a massive risk having Boimler and Mariner in a live action version of Strange New Worlds. If this works, don't get me wrong, it could be glorious. It could be really, really brilliant. But if it doesn't, it's going to be awful. There is absolutely no way this can just be an okay episode of Star Trek. It's either got to be amazing or it's going to be awful. And that's the massive risk that they're facing at the moment. So all I can say is Jonathan Frakes is directing this episode. He better do a good job, because if he doesn't, this is going to be cheesy and oh, it's going to be painful to watch. So Strange New Worlds must succeed, but there are massive, massive risks. And Anson Mount, however brilliant he is, might not be enough. So I'm concerned about Strange New Worlds, but I'm hoping that those concerns are misguided and that it's just a brilliant series of Star Trek, because I want to see Star Trek succeed. I want to see it get better and better. I've just done a video talking about actually how Picard Season 3 maybe wasn't as good as I thought. Please go back and check it out. But it still was an improvement. I am a Trekkie at heart. It's one of my favourite franchises, only second to Stargate. Now, we then have to remember that they've also decided to go into phase 2 of Star Trek. So obviously, even Alex Kurtzman knows that they're at a bit of a crossroads and that they're going into the next phase of Star Trek. We're going to be getting a biannual movie starting with Section 31 starring Michelle Yeoh. I'm very excited about that. We're also getting a new live action series, Starfleet Academy, Star Trek 90210. Teenagers running around. Well, I can see absolutely no risks there at all. We really are going into a do or die period for Star Trek. It really is Monte Carlo or bust. And if bad decisions have been made again, like what we saw early on in Discovery, it really could be the death of Star Trek. But if they get some of them right, we could be going into a golden age of Star Trek, something that we've never seen before. And I hope for Paramount's sake that it's the latter. But guys, please get into the comments and tell me what you think. Do you agree with me that Star Trek has improved over the last few years? That we're seeing actually some pretty good episodes of Trek now? That maybe there are still some problems there, but that they are getting fixed slowly? Or is New Trek dead? Should it never have been allowed in the first place? And is it just an embarrassment compared to things like The Next Generation? I'd love to know exactly what you think. Get into the comments. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can go to patreon.com/sidetrek, where most of our videos air first. And you get to see them for a small contribution each month that really supports the channel without the adverts. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.